everyone, this is Melville. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to take a look at Fallen, but more specifically I want to talk about one topic, and that is board gamification of solo RPG. And if you don't know about that word, that's fine because I made it up, and I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about it later on. But first of all, let's quickly look at what Fallen is. So Fallen is a Baroque and Green fantasy tabletop RPG. I was sent this game a while ago by the author Perplexing Ruins, and I think this is a wonderful game. I'm not going to go through all the details, what it is, but I'm going to explain what it is in general. So, in my opinion, I think Fallen is a kind of a mixture of classic OSR games and also the ever popular Iron Sworn, where it picks some of the best bits of both parts, namely the simplification rules of OSRs, in a way that there's only very simple things that you need to track. You only have 4 attributes starting from 0 to 4. Your strength, focus, agility, wills. You also have 12 skills that you can use. The checks in this game is really simple. You just roll 2d6 plus your relevant attributes or your skills. As long as you get 7 or more, then you will succeed. With some complication, if you get 10 more, you get a perfect success. 6 or less, then you get a failure. In a way, that is very similar to the games like Iron Swans in that case, where the interesting part is obviously not your straight success or your straight failure, but more often is the complication that is interesting. Apart from that, you also have a very simple skill systems. You have 12 of them. Now, these are more, in a way, a mixture of traditional skills and the moves in Iron Sworn. Because, for example, you have one category is called exploration, and that dictates all kind of explorations. Now, the good things about this system is that it does tell you specifically what it means when you succeed, what it means when you have succeed, but with complication, and when you miss. And I think this is very useful for soloists because it just takes you, it allows you to just go straight, read the prompts, get a result instead of coming up with your own complications and so forth. And on top of that, you have some very simple incantations. That is the magic in this game, very similar to Roguelands, where you and the likes of Knave, where you basically roll a couple of words, you combine them together, come up with your own effects and so forth. On top of that, there's some enchantment where you can basically enchant on your weapons to give it some specific effects. And last for this is going to be a travel system that is very similar to Solitary Defilements, where you basically roll a dice to see what kind of journey it is. Is it a difficult one? Is it an easy one? And then you roll a dice to see how many waypoints you need to complete before you reach the destinations. So each waypoint requires you to pass a exploration test in order to get to there. So basically, if you have like disquieting ones, d4 plus 1, let's say 5, then you need to pass 5 times in order to reach your destinations. And after that is all generating tables. So this game is just the core rulebooks is about 44 pages, and there's only 17 pages of rules. Very simple, straightforward, and majority of the books will be your typical generators, like what is in the wild, what is in the city, what kind of themes. You get a very extensive generating tables, NPCs, operations, nouns, verbs, adjectives, all the good stuff. And apart from that, you also get 20 pages of pre-made kind of monsters, and also there's a monster generator as well. That's it for the core rulebook. So very short, very clean, but not something that we haven't seen before. Now, what I think really shines for Fallen is this supplement. So Hilgraab is a city and adventure supplement for Fallen RPG. And it comes with the core rulebooks. So, once you buy the core rulebooks, you get everything that you see in front of you. You get the core rulebooks, you get the Hilgraab supplement, you get this nicely put together checkerboard kind of oracle tables that also works with some additional oracle tables like yes or no, degree of success, random event, weather change, and so forth. And you also get these two wonderfully illustrated character sheets, and also this wonderfully hand-drawn Hilgraab city map. Now, the reason why I think Hilgraab is wonderful is because this is something that is not often being explored in the OSR or even the normal D&D genres, because a city crawl is one of the most interesting part and the most easy part for soloists to springboard their stories. If you think about going into the wilderness, most of the people can only think of a few things you can do in the wilderness, like hunting, foraging, maybe some wilderness encounters and so forth. But if you think about your characters in a city, then there's a lot of things to do. Even if you don't personally live in a city, I'm pretty sure that most of you will know, there are lots of things that you can do, like entertainments, or you can go to libraries, you can go to cinemas, theaters. In this world where we're talking about a medieval world, there's still a lot of things that anyone can simply think of: going to the church, going to the cemetery, and talk to different people, going to the taverns, and so forth. So there's an endless number of things that you can automatically think of to do in a city, while in the wilderness is a lot more difficult. So in a way, city is kind of the better place for soloists, because you don't have to think that hard to take yourself out of the characters before making any decisions. But what I really liked about this supplement is that this is focusing on a randomized city. So this is not a fixed city where you have a specific district and there's always that many things going on there. In fact, this is a dynamic city, and you are even encouraged to create a randomized cities using a system over here that basically allows you to write on a note card. So you write 10 note cards, each with one district, roll a couple of establishment per district, and randomize the location so that you can get your own specific Hilgraab city. And after that, you get some specific city rules, like the laws that you're going to encounter, how do you get around, and also you have a city pressure and also a clue system, which I will cover a bit later. And apart from that, you get a really detailed page per district. So for example, if we talk about this Rising Hook Hill, it is a commercial district. There are a number of establishments there, so you can roll D12 to find the kind of establishment you want to see. You have random whispers, sights on streets, notable NPCs, 2 of them per district, and some ways of generating conflicts in that district. And you get 10 of them, so there's a lot of them. Each of them are quite unique. And apart from that, you also get your typical rolling tables, like get the street names, atmosphere on the street, what is happening, things like major event, characters, contacts, gangs, cults, kind of nobles. This allows you to actually write down, roll a couple of names and roll on the relationships, so you get a more complex kind of NPC relationships. So probably this family is a bitter rival to another family, but at the same time, they have something going on in between them. And apart from that, you get some hooks, you get some villains, and you get some, a bazaar shop that sells weird stuff, a pre-written adventure, and then you also get some 100 curios. So overall, a really great supplement. Now, for those of you who have basically played solo role-playing games or watched the games videos by like the likes of Geek Gamers or Dungeon Dive, you probably already have a good idea of how you can use this wonderfully put together resources. And it is a really nice resources, I have to say that. For I think $10 you get all of this stuff. So it is a generous package, a rare thing on itch.io, to be honest, because for those of you who have spent enough money on itch.io, you will know that Same money doesn't necessarily give you the same kind of resources that you expected, but Perplexing Ruins have put a lot into this game. But there's a question. The question is, what do you do with these resources if you're not one of those people who are into a traditional soloist narrative-driven experience, similar to the ones that are covered by Geek Gamers, where you roll on the tables and ask the questions to say, is there something behind this door? And you roll on a noun, verb, interpret them in their own ways, and maybe do a test and so forth, and go on to the next ones. Because in a way, that is similar to the likes of creating writings, and that is one major criticism by a lot of people who first tried solo RPGs, probably coming from board game backgrounds or coming from a group play backgrounds. Because to be honest, I think most of us would know that Oracle tables, while it is a very good tool, it is never going to be able to replace a human GM, because a human GM will be able to come up with different ways of progressing the stories, but Oracles will always rely on the soloists, the players, to progress the stories. And for you to progress the stories, it just means that you are writing a story. So that's why the comparison between writing a novel and playing soloist comes into play. And it is a fair kind of criticisms. So what do we do if we are one of those that find, solo playing too much of creative writings, too relying on oracles or interpretations of oracles to progress stories? Then my answer to that is the word that I created: board gamifications of solo RPG. Because in a way, board games and RPGs are the two opposite spectrums of the same thing, where we are playing a character. In the board games, we have specific rules where we follow it to get to a goal. Either we defeat the final enemies, or we win by points, or we get most of the wealth and so forth. On the other hand of the spectrum, role-playing games, or solo role-playing games specifically, we are doing narrative creations. We are stitching the different narrative hooks together to create a coherent story. So it seems that they are on the two opposite spectrums, and it is really difficult to mix and match them together. But I think one of the most important thing is that we can actually try to learn from each other's, and I'm going to show that by using this supplement. So the supplement I'm going to show is the Shadows of Hilgraab, a board gamification of Fallen, and actually it's designed by myself today. So because I wanted to play Fallen, but I don't want to play a journaling games or a completely pure narrative driven games similar to you. What I want instead is a structured gameplay cycle where I can lean on the gameplay to drive story forward, instead of requiring myself as the soloist or the creator, the solo GM, to kind of push the story forward. And I'm going to quickly explain what Shadows of Hilgraab is. So Shadows of Hilgraab is a solo board game variant, I'm going to call that, for Fallen RPG, where there's mainly two modes that you can play. So the first one is a solo board game mode, where it is more like a traditional board games. In fact, there's no need for you to roll on your characters. Your characters can be simply as a random character, so you don't even need the character board, character sheet. There's no complex skill check system. Everything is simplified into a 2d6. As long as you roll more than 7, you succeed. And more importantly, there's no need for doing any journal writings or any creative writings, because there's a concrete goal of this game. The goal is to investigate some mystery. It could be a murder. It could be a heist in the city. It doesn't matter what it is, because we are going to abstract that into a way that as long as we complete a certain criteria, we will be able to win this game. And the way it works is, first of all, you are going to have your own character. So in this case, I'm just using a chess piece in this case. I'm not really good at using miniatures, and I think everyone can use something like this even if you don't have miniatures. So this is my character. And the way it works is it's going to be, you're going to first of all decide where your character is. And you can see I'm going to use the game that is in the Hilgraab map. So first of all, you roll d10 to see where your character starts. And I think we're going to start looking at number 1, which is, so number 1 is the Rise and Rook Hill actually. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start by putting a few random clues, and clues are represented by these tokens, and you can just use any tokens you want, coins or anything you can find. And you start with 2 tokens, you again roll 2 d10s, you get a 6, which is a... So 6 is the candle keep, so I'm going to put 1 token there, and I'm going to roll another one, so this is a 9, and 9 will be the spy buff. Okay, so and the next thing is that you can you're gonna put these tokens over here. So you have 12 of them. I'm gonna have 2 different colors, 6 for the daytime and 6 for the nighttime. These tokens are going to be used to, you will have to basically use this as action points. So in order for you to move around the city or do any actions, you will have to spend these action points in order to do so, and different actions will have different costs. So for example, in daytime, venturing will cost only 1 action point, but in the nighttime it will cost a bit more. Now this is just the basic board game mode. If you want to play the role-playing RPG mode, which allows you to do a lot more interpretations, which we're probably going to switch to later on, you can also have like additional actions like mending, stealth. These are all actions that you can find on Fallen RPG. And so we have 6 per day, so per shift, and we're good to go because the goal of the game is to collect as much clue as possible, because clues will allow us to, for example, establish some contacts. Contacts are basically people in the city that will give you more clues. So it is a good idea to establish as many as possible. You can each player can establish up to 3, and you can have 1 per district. So this game can be played as a solo or 2-player co-ops or even competitive, and each of them will have different criteria of winning. So solo and co-ops, you basically need to solve the mystery within 21 days if you're playing solo, or 14 days if you're playing 2-player co-op. And if you're playing competitive, it just means the first player who complete the showdown with the villain will wins the game. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to decide what we're going to do in the city. And you can tell this straight away that it is different from your normal or the solo RPG that you have seen from a lot of people playing online. Because, most of the people, they will start with like creating stories, what is going on, what is the mystery, for example, what is the background of the mystery, who is doing that, and why are we here. In our case, we don't even need to know about that, because we have a very clear goal. First of all, we need to collect these clues, and to do so, we have to move away from Rise and Rook Hill into the Spire Bluff. And I'm going to spend the first action point here that allows us to move. So it's going to be an adventure move, and I'm going to move to Spire Bluff, and I'm going to pick this up. This is a clue for us. And clues will allow us to do a few things. So you can see we can establish a contact, which costs just 1 action point, 1 clues. We can reduce some of the city pressures. We can establish an advantage for the day. We can gain some knowledge on the villains. We can identify the villains, and we can finally trigger the showdown. Each of them will have different costs, obviously. So for 1 clue, we can actually just do 1 thing. And I'm going to do that straight away, and that is to establish a contact. So I'm going to establish the first contact over here at the spy bluff. And this is where the role-playing mode can kick in, because as I've mentioned, you can actually use the Fallen RPG supplement to kind of see what this contact is. So there's a really nice table over here. I'm gonna just showcase how you can do that. So it's a D12 table. So a contact in Spy Bluff, which is a 9. A merchant, so a merchant in Spy Bluff. Now, you can read a bit more about that location, but I think you can tell already straight away if you play a bit of close attention. It doesn't really matter who this contact is, because what it matters is that we establish him. And in this games, what it matters the most is his disposition. So we need to know how he feels about us, this merchant. And I'm going to roll a d12 to see what it is. It is an 8, which means that he's wary. Now, in this supplement, Shadows of Hilgraab, wary means that obviously he's not very friendly to us. And more importantly, he's not going to provide a daily clue to us. So in order to trigger, or basically allows this merchant to give us clues about this mystery, this case, we have to improve the relationship with him up to at least helpful or friendly level. And in order to do so, it calls for a diplomacy action, which costs 1 action point. I'm going to do that. And as I mentioned, for this, the basic board game variant, every action is going to be 2d6. More than 7 is going to be a success. If you use the role-playing mode, the RPG mode, then obviously we need to use the core Fallen rule sets, which means that 7 to 9 will be a success with complications. But let's do a very simple ones now. Let's see if we manage to get him to be helpful, this merchant. And we succeed. So he is now very helpful. That means that for the next day, if nothing wrong happens, then he will be able to automatically generate a clue for us for the day, which is very good news. Now that we have spent 2 actions here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get to Candle Keep over here. And I'm going to spend an action point here to go back to Rising Rook Hill. And I'm going to spend another there to get to the Dents East. And I'm going to spend another one, get to over the bridge to Candles Keep, where I'm going to pick up this clue. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to quickly use that to establish another contact, and I'm going to roll and see how that contact feels about us to see if it's helpful or not. And he is a 10, and 10 is another wary person. So again, you can go to the contact to see who he is, and I'm actually going to do that. It's about a T12 as well, so 9. Another merchant, so we have 2 merchants over here. So automatically, you can see that by doing this game like this, you don't even need to ask Oracle questions, but the story automatically creates on its own. You're not playing as a GM in this case, you're playing as a player. But by simply playing this game, we already have a little bit of story. We start from this place, Rise and Rook Hill. We have established 2 contacts, both of them merchants. So in this case, the case itself is probably some kind of crime related to economic activities, maybe. But that's okay. Let's go to the next part. The next part is obviously we need to raise the disposition of this merchant to helpful as well. So we're going to do that again. 2d6. Oh, that's a 5. So I've wasted an action, and it's still 5. Now, what it means is I've spent 6 of the daytime action, which means that we are now in nighttime. And for most cases, if it's just a diplomacy, so it's just talking to people, it's not going to spend more actions. So I'm just going to spend another yellow one. Hopefully we can get a 7. Still not. I'm going to keep spending until I get it. Yep, I've got a 7. So Now I have 4 actions point left, and there's not a lot of things I can do on this map at this point of time. But one thing I forgot to mention is I've included a city location tracker, which basically means that where you are at the moment. And this is a randomized location. So every time you move from one district to another one, you will basically end up at a random location. And we're going to see where we are at. So it's going to be a d6 plus a d10, so it's a 6 and a 1, which means that we are in a safe place. We are in a city plaza, which is good, because the way this game works is at the end of the day, the villain will make its move. So in this case, I'm actually going to not do anything else. I'm going to save these points. I'm not going to do anything else, because what happens is next is that the action will start, the villains will start to make its move. And the villains, we don't know who is, we don't need to know who he is. He could be anyone at this point of time. We don't even need to ask any oracle questions at this point of time. We just need to know that they are going to move. So the villain move is just d12. You just need to roll d12. But depending on how many clues you have that you held on you, you will need to add that number to your d12 result, basically representing if you're more closer to his identity, then obviously he will try to do a bit more to stop you. So I've got to move the contact to helpful as well. So I'm going to just root to d12 to see. It's a 7. We don't have any clues in our hands, so it's just to be a straight 7. Which means PC not in a safe place will face danger. And that's where I mentioned it's good that we are actually in a safe place, because if we're not in a safe place, we need to spend additional action points to try to move into a safe place. Otherwise, we have to face danger. So that concludes the first day, and we're going to start from the beginning again. And as I mentioned, the goal is to try to solve this case in 21 days. And the first thing on the next day is that we will going to check what happens to each of our contact, because who knows what's going to happen to them. So I'm going to first check the contact 1. Both of them are helpful in this case. I'm going to roll a d6 to see what happens to the first guy. A 1. News. Contact sent clue. So as I mentioned, as the more contact we have established, then they will send more clues to us. So in this case, without doing anything, we already gained 1 clue. Let's see what happens to the second guy. A 6. So 6 means in danger. So find contact today and face danger, or remove this contact. Oh, that's bad. So I'm going to mark it here. So contact 2 is in danger. He's the helpful one as well. So we'll see if we're going to help him. So that concludes the contract phase, and we are also going to do a clue refurbish, a replenish as well, because every day you automatically put 2 clues on the map, and these are 2 d10s, and I'm going to see what they are. So the first one is number 4. It's going to be in. So it's going to be in the pearl. So it's all the way in the top over here. And the second one is going to be number 10. And number 10 is going to be docking. So unfortunately, it's in the opposite side of the river. Now we are back to our action phase. So we can collect all our spent action yesterday. We start with 6 again, 6 per shift. So 6 in the daytime and 6 in the nighttime. And you can see it's a good time to talk about the scenarios, because we have one in front of us. So contact 2, the one where we are with at the canal keep, is in danger. Whatever danger it is, doesn't matter. Again, you can roll up on the different nouns, verbs, where, and all these oracle tables. It will add the flavor to this game, but it's not necessary. Let's say he's in danger. This merchant is in danger. What we're going to do is we will have to help him. And in order to help him, we will need to face a scenario. And the face scenario means that we have to see where he's in danger with. So the thing we're going to do first is, again, see this random location. Again, it's going to be a d6 and d10, so a 4 and a 4, which means that it is in a disquieting location. So an alley or wharf or whatever it is. I think I'm going to call it a wharf in this case because this is still next to the river. So this merchant maybe is walking alone in this wharf, and some of the I don't know, local gangsters just basically mocked him and try to maybe kidnap him and try to force him to pay them a ransom, and that's why he's in danger. And that's why if we don't save him, then then he will be disappeared from this game. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to set up the face danger scenario because we know it's disquieting, so we can rely on the Fallen rulebooks. And you can see over here, disquieting is just a d4 plus 1. So that's number of waypoints or success that we need to get to in order to save this guy. So 2. So it's just 3 in total. So I'm going to just put 3 over here. And we can see that because we only have 3, so it's basically a final assault. So the more waypoints that you have to go through, obviously, it means that you have to start from a higher stage. And each stage, I've just put a random narrative nouns to kind of tell you what it is. So if you have like 8+, then you need to go through 4 shadows, hit the fans before the storm, and final assault. There's no mechanical difference. It's just basically allows you to quickly generate a story, and I'm pretty sure you can tell, you know, the higher you have, then the bigger the storyline will be. But in this case, it's just final assault. So hell let loose. So probably we just kick open that that door where this merchant is being capped. So we just need to get through 3 success in order to save him. So first of all, I'm going to spend the action, 1 action, to roll, and that's a 1 success. And I'm going to spend another one, which is going to be a 7, good, which means that he's down to 1 more success. And no, unfortunately, that is a wasted one. I'm going to spend another one doing this, and yes, that is a 10. So that just means that we saved him, so he will be there, and he will give us the clues that he didn't send earlier because he was in danger. Now, unfortunately, it just means that we spent 4 additional action points just to save this guy. And good news is he's no longer in danger. But if we look at a map, it just means that we have to probably travel in the nighttime in order to even gain 1 clue. So doesn't matter. I'm going to spend 1 action point to move to the dance, spend 1 from dance to move to the docking, so I can collect this. Now I have some options here. I can try to push myself to get to the pearl. I have 6 action points, which in the nighttime I need 2 to get through the actions, go through a venture or movement per location. So I've just enough. And in fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to spend this 2 to go to Spire Bluff, spend 2 to get to the Pearl. And actually, I do have 2 left. So I'm going to collect the clue. Now, what I can do with 4 clues, I don't want to keep 4 clues with me because it just means that it's a bit more dangerous when the villain moves. So I'm going to spend all of them straight away. So going back down to no clues, but I'm going to get a knowledge of the villain. I'm going to spend him to gain a knowledge. Now, you have like 4 different knowledge that you can get. You can get the background, you can get the intention, power, weakness, and you will need to at least get 2 of them before you can get the identity of the villain. So in this case, I'm just going to put a background. Again, doesn't even need to know what that background is, but if you want, you can easily roll a dice and see what it is. And I'm going to just roll a few to show you an example why it is very easy in this case, because we already know that we need to know a background. So I'm gonna say a noun, which is 76. So a bad side, and I'm going to say a adjective, which is 23. Fraudulent, and verb, so it's 13. A peer. So doesn't need to be a very complicated story. I'm just going to say that the fraudulent bad side probably means that it is a mistress that is basically going through from these entrepreneurs or these merchants and maybe scamming them. I don't know, maybe that, or some murder involved, doesn't matter. At least we know the background is involved something regarding these merchants and something regarding this mistress that's going through different merchants and probably doing something to them. Doesn't matter at this point of time. What matters is that we still have 2 action points and we are not sure where we are at. So I'm going to roll the 2 d6 and d10 to see where we are at and see if we need to get ourselves into a safe place. So it's a 3 and a 1. That is good. That just means that we are in a safe place in the first place. So we're in a tavern. So we can save that 2 action points. We don't need to worry about failing it and ending up in a random location. So in a way, I think this explains majority of the way how this game works. And you can see this allows players to play a role-playing game in a completely different way. It is not the way that we normally see from the soloist, the journaling type, or the narrative-driven types, where you ask questions and you try to get an answer and you try to come up with a way to get the story forward. On the other hand, this is a board game-driven, a gameplay-driven experience where there's a very concrete goal. You have to identify this villain, doesn't matter who he is. You need to gain enough knowledge on this villain, know his identity, spend enough clues to trigger a showdown within 21 days. Or if you're playing with someone competitively, then obviously in that case, you have to be the first one to do so. But what is good about this way of playing, the board gamification of solo role-playing games, is that it frees the players from the cycle of asking a question, answering it through oracle tables, and trying to creatively generating a story. On the other hand, this is a story that is generated automatically through playing the game. And you can see how basically it allows you to ignore all the oracle rollings, generating tables and so forth, by simply just focusing on the fun part, which is, traveling around on this wonderfully hand-drawn map and gaining clues or beating your components or basically trying to win within the condition of the game. The stories will automatically be generated on its own. So, Fallen. This is the expansion that I've created, the Shadows of Hilgraab. This is also an example that I want to show in terms of how I play Fallen as a role-playing game. And this is trying to be a kind of example to showcase how you can play it without referring to a lot of journal writings, creative writings, and I do have future plans on these games. If there are more adventures that come up from Perplexing Ruins, maybe if there's more maps like this, then I can definitely look into creating more board games style supplement for this game. And I hope this is going to be useful to those of you. This is a free game that you can get on HIO. You only need this one page. You just need to print it out and you can see I've laminated it. You can also cut it into 9 cards, which is poker size, similar to the games that I've covered previously, the Barbarian Prince, and that basically allows you to bring this game around with you and put it in whatever order you want, and it will be very easy for you to play. So there are more things going on to this game. I'm not going to go through all of them. There are ways to get even more narrative stories, generating atmosphere and so forth in this game. But at its core, what I wanted to achieve is a game that you can play even without all of those Oracle tables or even a character sheet, because I think that is one way of thinking about solo role-playing games. It's start with the game, then go on to the narratives. So that's about it. So I will talk to you guys next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.